And Sharon, you can take it away.
Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. This is the Policy Committee meeting for the Weston Board of Education. Today is Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. And do I have to have a motion to start the meeting? I can never remember what these committee
No, you
things.
can do it. Yep.
So let's just go ahead and dive into this because we are starting, unfortunately, about 13 minutes late. So let's, out of respect for everybody's time, let's just go ahead and move in. We, as everyone saw, as part of the agenda, we have the first item of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. So I had a chance to take a look at them. I didn't see any changes that I thought were necessary.
Nor did I.
All right, Steve, you want to make a motion that we approve the minutes from our last meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
And I second the motion. Passes. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our new business today, which is our health. What's the actual name of this policy in particular? I don't have that in front of me. Sorry. Health policy number.
Health assessment screenings.
Health assessment screenings. Excellent. And today we have Kristen. Kristen, I'm sorry, I don't have your last name on the screen here. So
Abreu.
Kristen Abreu joining us, and she is our supervisor of nursing for the district. So she's going to walk us through this policy and talk about any of the changes that were made and any changes that are recommended. And of course, any board members, as we continue with our discussion, if you see anything in that policy that we'd like to add or amend, we can do that too. So Kristen, you want to take it away?
Sure. As many of you have children in the district or have had children in the district, we have requirements through the state of meeting basic health parameters. We need to have health screenings before entering the district and at certain different points throughout their journey through the district to make sure everybody's healthy and happy and getting all the care that they need. So there aren't too many tweaks to this policy. It's the only thing that I'm suggesting that we tweak is updating the language for our prior policy, replacing superintendent with district nurse supervisor, since we are the ones that are sending out communications regarding screenings and testings and receiving information. And then the only other part is that our current policy states that people should have their assessment prior to entering 6th grade, where I'm proposing that we change that to prior to entering 7th grade and prior to entering 9th grade. We already have the 9th grade portion in there, but I just wanted to put the language to match what is currently being done, which also meets state standards. So it's just updating our policy to match what's being done in practice and which also meets the state standards.
So there is no other reason as to why to change it from 6th grade to 7th grade. There was no developmental reason or anything.
So it actually makes more sense to have it prior to entering 7th grade because that's when girls get scoliosis testing. And if they're tested by their doctor for scoliosis testing, we have a record of it. We have fewer children to screen. We screen anybody who's not been screened for scoliosis. That's a girl in 7th grade. We also, at that point, are monitoring whether or not the student has gotten their meningococcal vaccine for the entering of 7th grade. If we're collecting the 6th grade, essentially, if you're collecting it prior to entering 5th grade, it's 6th grade, you're really collecting their 5th grade physical, and we need to collect their 6th grade physical. So it's just, we're already doing it in practice, and it's just so that the language of our actual policy matches what we're doing in practice.
All right, that makes total sense. So I quick question from me when I was looking at it, a couple of questions. One is the exemption clause. This policy, and I just want to say this for clarification, this policy specifically is about screenings only. This has nothing to do as far as vaccinations are concerned. That's a completely separate
There
policy.
is a whole other vaccine policy that has been updated recently where we do not accept. So vaccines have nothing to do with this. You have to have, that's a whole different policy. This is purely about health screenings, which are required to enter the school district. You have to have your health assessment record, the early childhood health assessment record for those that are in preschool, and then the health assessment record for those kindergarten and above. And you have to have everything answered on that prior to being admitted to the district if you're new to the district. And you also need to have that before entering kindergarten, before entering 7th grade, and before entering 9th grade, so that we can check on, certain measures of health and make sure that you're vaccinated. But this is more about the screenings that we do in schools. We screen all kindergarten, first and second graders for hearing and vision. We do also 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders hearing and vision. I'm sorry, we don't do kindergartners. We the language is in there. Whatever it says in there is what we do and what's state mandated. Every single child in WIS for hearing and vision. And then we do scoliosis in the high school for boys and in the middle school for girls.
Okay. One other thing, and this is just like a question for clarification, non-emergency invasive screening or exam. Can you give us an example?
My
of what that
guess is that language may have come into play when they were doing COVID testing in the school, because you are putting a probe into somebody's orifice. It wasn't in, I don't believe it was in the original language of our policy, but it was added later on. We don't do any invasive screening in our district. And I think that's just in case there was some sort of state mandate that some testing needed to be done, let's say swabbing for a communicable disease, or I guess that would also include injections, since you're then violating somebody's,
Right.
personal, space, body. That would be my assumption. I'm not 100% sure why that language was added. We don't currently have anything that we are doing that would be considered, that would fall into that realm.
Okay, but Shipman still recommends that we maintain that language, correct?
Yes, they still recommend we maintain that language.
Okay. Steve, do you have any questions on any of it?
No, I'm fine.
Anyone else? All right, so we're making that one tweak, right, Kristen, for the
Yes, so we're making the one tweak of the prior to entering 7th grade and prior to entering 9th grade. And I need to look a little bit more closely to make sure that that language carries throughout. But that's what I'm looking for, to have that prior to entering 7th grade, prior to entering 9th grade language follow throughout. And from what I saw, it did, except for that first paragraph there. And then the only other suggestion is that because the school nurses are also communicating these letters to their students, right now the policy reads the district nurse supervisor will be sending parents notifications of screenings and follow-up letters regarding failures. I would like that also to include or their designee, or if you want to say or the school nurse, so that it's, I'm checking to make sure that it's being done, but I can also delegate that to my school nurses, since that's currently what the practice is. The school nurses are the ones, I also send them, but the school nurses are the ones that do it for their school as they're doing their screening.
Which page are we on? I'm sorry.
I believe,
because usually we go page by page. Which
Okay.
page is it on? That's okay. Is it 4 are you talking about?
Yes, I think it starts on 4.
yeah, it starts on 4, where it says the district nurse supervisor shall give written notice to the parents or guardians of each student who is found to have any defect. So that comes from, it can either come from me, but typically it comes from the school nurse.
But this is my question regarding that. I mean, to me, it's kind of administrative, clerical task. I don't, they can certainly manage it and send it out and do all of that. But I feel like it should say something like, under the direction of the district nurse supervisor, the school nurses shall give written notice. But I do think that you, as the supervisor, should sign the letter. Because what I worry about is, I want it to look like it's a district thing. I mean, they can answer questions or whatever, but I think that you should sign the letter. It should be under your direction, and they should sort of do the process so you know what's going on. Are you comfortable with that?
Well, the problem with that is that the letter that comes is actually generated in Snap and is emailed directly through our nursing documentation system. When we
Yeah.
have an irregular screening, it's documented in Snap, and we can send that screening result directly to the parents so that they get an email to them and get the notification for their signature and the doctor's signature to return it back to us. And that comes from the person who was screening them, which in most cases is the school nurse.
I understand, but it sounds almost like you just need to change the letter template in Snap.
It's
Am I missing
not so much a
something?
letter template though. It's like I don't think I can add my name because it's the signature of the person. It's like we have our nursing
Oh,
signatures
okay.
attached to it because it's linked to our license.
Okay.
And
well,
it's like our signing of our documentation.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more nuanced. It's very
I
much
understand.
individualized. We're not sending mass letters to everybody. It's very much on a student by student basis and by nurse basis. So that's the only reason why I'm concerned with the language, because I feel like it's too limiting.
And are
Lisa,
you, so you're
can
going
we
to be CC'd
flip
on
that
everyone?
wording around and say the school nurse under the direction
Yes,
of
exactly.
the
Yes.
district supervisor?
That would be
Just leave
fine.
that. Just
So
leave
that if it
in there.
doesn't, so that if it's not getting done, obviously it's under my purview. I would be the one responsible.
That's what I want to
But
make sure.
I don't know if you want to say like delegate, like, or designee or delegate or whatever, because that's what we do in nursing. The superior delegates to, the staff. So however we think it's most effective and efficient to word it so that we can have essentially the language that implies that the school nurse supervisor as well as the school nurses are allowed to do this.
And you're CC'd on each of the emails that are sent out, correct?
No, but I have access in the system where I can run reports to pull all the data of the students who did not test.
It should be noted that the original language was the superintendent would do this.
I know.
And I
Yeah.
believe that was by Shipman. So I would feel most comfortable if it says under the direction of the district news supervisor, the nurse, because there's a reason why Shipman wants the central office linked to it.
True. Steve, would you mind muting? You got a lot of background noise there, unfortunately. Steve,
Not me, there's no noise at all.
it's coming up. Is anybody else getting it? It's coming
Yeah,
up.
I'm getting it.
Yeah, just if you could hit mute for a second. I don't know why.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
No, no worries.
Yeah, okay, so I think that, sorry, Steve, we want to hear from you, but for some odd reason, it kept coming up that you had
Yeah,
a lot of noise.
it went away after you did that. Sorry.
You've got ghosts in your house.
Are you comfortable with that then, under the direction of the nursing supervisor, the school nurse? We'll just make
Yes.
those changes there. Thank you.
All right, so if you want to go ahead and make those changes, does anybody else, Michael, welcome, by the way. Do you have any thoughts on this policy? Did you have a chance to look through?
Yeah, I took a look. I didn't see anything. I saw that we moved up the time frame there and some of the earlier language in terms of the grades. So I didn't know the reason for that. And then that second change that I saw makes sense, obviously, from the superintendent over to the nurse supervisor. So that makes sense to me. I didn't know what the reason, Sharon, and apologies for being a little bit late, guys.
No worries.
Didn't understand the reason why why we would move it up. Just curious.
Yeah.
Kristen
So
covered that. Yeah.
it still meets standard, and I'm just updating the language to match what's done in practice. I mentioned earlier that we collect the 6th grade physical. So in 6th grade, the kids get their physical and they present it to us prior to entering 7th grade, because in 7th grade, we're doing the scoliosis screening of all girls. And if they've already been screened by their physician, that's documented on that document. We have fewer people to screen, as well as that is also the age that they get their meningococcal vaccine, which is another state mandated vaccine prior to entering 7th grade. So if we're collecting the 6th grade, if we're collecting prior to entering 7th grade, that's their 6th grade physical, which has all that data on it. If we're collecting the 5th grade physical prior to entering 6th grade, then we're chasing people, and it's not in our policy that they need to give it to us. It's there because they needed to enter 7th grade, this data, but they're saying, well, where in the policy does it say that? And I would like the language of our policy to match what we're doing in practice.
Totally makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, so if that's it, if anyone, oh, so.
No, I just
go
have
ahead.
one question. The security of the information that we collect on children, where is that housed?
It is in our protected health management system, the SNAP documentation system, which is maintained by our IT department. We each have our own personal login, nursing wise. We're the only ones with access to that system. And then we store the health records in locked file cabinets in locked nurses' offices. So that's how we do that. They have their that 3-sheet or 4-sheet piece of paper, the health assessment record goes into their manila folder, which gets filed in their grade level and then follows them throughout their whole career in school. If they change districts, that goes with them. And then we save their vaccination records in locked file cabinets after they graduate. So.
Thanks.
So can we move this one forward to the board?
Yeah, I was just going to
Dr.
suggest
Street?
that if everyone's comfortable with it, this should be a relatively, if we make those tweaks and they're going to be able to get it on the agenda for the 12th, I think that would be good. So we can, Kristen, we have to have 2 reads by the board. So the first read, they go, and I don't know if you're familiar with the policy and how this works. And then the second meeting in March is when the board will vote on approving this policy. So I'm comfortable with it going to the board though. Do we need to make a motion for this, Jody? Nope. Okay, good. So let's just move it on out.
Do you think there is a need to have Kristen at the board meeting when the policy is read? I think it's pretty straightforward.
I think it's pretty straightforward too. I think that people are going to start, I think they're going to have the same question, but I mean, about why changing it from 6th to 7th, I think that I'm comfortable answering that question. But Kristen, if you want to come and join us for a board meeting, you're always welcome
Yeah,
to.
it's going to be very long. I'm just putting that out there. I would
That's on the 12th.
I would respectfully suggest we bring the policy forward. It has to be read twice anyway. So if there are further questions, then we ask Kristen to come in March.
I think that would be reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Come
fine
on,
with that too.
Kristen.
I'm happy if it was really something that was a lot of changes and I need to go to bat for it, I would totally be there. But you know,
I think it's good.
it's
I
going to
think
be a
it's
long
good.
board meeting for a very small part of me.
Yeah.
Well, and then
Don't
I
there's
worry.
usually end up watching them after the fact.
Mhm. You're good.
Yeah. I
it's,
wouldn't worry
it's
about it.
actually in person too, so you'd
Yeah.
have to be sitting there.
Yeah, I
I'm just
mean,
trying to think of
I think you're good.
let's get the
All right.
questions if there are any. And
yeah,
we certainly
if
can
there are
obviously-
any questions, I am happy to make a attempt at my best to be at the one in March.
I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
my guess is like, I'm comfortable answering the question of why from 6th to 7th. So, all right, great. So we'll go ahead and move that one out. That was our only policy that we're looking at now.
Mhm.
The age of attendance policy isn't quite ready yet.
Mhm.
And what else? We've got a couple of other policies. I think we had some AI facing policies that Dan is working on right now. But they're not quite ready for the policy committee yet. So this is, I think, a relatively brief meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and what I am doing is I had also gotten an updated list of the mandatory practices based on information from Shipman, and I'm going through the mandatory practice list and I'm comparing it to the dates of our revisions to see what we need to work on next. And in my conversation with Shipman, they said that some of the policies we should really be focusing on are the ones relating to students, personnel, and instruction, because those are policies that are tied to the school handbooks. So if we want to have an area of focus, those are some of the ones that we should work on outside of the mandatory ones.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think some of these, the AI, for example, with the student AI use in district, computers and all that, those are definitely things that I want to visit with this policy committee, because those are developing issues.
The one thing about them is that we have been advised to wait until there's some templates out there and they're still not available.
Okay.
Because I know
right.
David's been looking at it, but that's kind of where all the tech directors are, is to wait to see. I know that that Shipman is working on that.
Okay. All right. And the residency policy, I think right now, Lisa, you're still kind of working on that one as well? Because I think that was most recently updated in 2007. Is that correct? I have it in my notes from our last meeting that was one of the policies that we wanted to have a.
That we wanted to look at.
Look
Part
at.
of that is also tied into age of attendance, because age of
Yeah.
attendance ties into admissions and placement, and residency is buried within admissions and placement. So it kind of all ties together.
Yeah, I
And
just
Jody, I would
attended.
also, if you can, send me the newest shipment policy on illness, because our policy was last updated in 1990.
I know. My
They're still
pleasure.
getting sick.
I'm more than happy to send you what I can find.
Immunization, all those would be great to take care
Yeah,
of.
I'm working through them.
Yeah, I know. I
Kristen is,
appreciate
she
it.
is. She's been working on them.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then, so new business, I guess that covers our new business. We're going to be getting hopefully some juicy policies coming up shortly.
Mhm.
And all right, so the next meeting, I think we have scheduled for March 5th. Okay,
March
thank you, Jody. All right, so March 5th, next meeting. Trying to keep these things short and sweet if we can. Kristen, thank you so much for your help with this
You're
and
welcome.
clarification.
Thank
We look
you.
forward to having you on future policy meetings as we address the other policies that you want to tackle. So,
We're so fortunate to have you. I feel like we're in really good hands, kind of
Well,
looking.
thank you. I appreciate that.
You know, we value your level of expertise that you bring.
Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Perfect. If I could just have a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Thank you.
did we just lose our internet? Oh, sorry.
You froze for a second there, Sharon.
Yeah, I'm like, let's go. Everyone froze. I thought maybe we lost our internet. All right. Well, with that being said, my freezing, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. See you.
Thank you. Have a
next
nice
month.
day.